Let us begin today's session with the universal prayer. O hidden life, vibrant in every atom. O hidden light, shining in every creature. O hidden love, embracing all in oneness. May each who feels himself as one with thee know he is also one with every other. So good evening once again to everybody. So as I was telling you that in today's session, we will be looking at the correspondence between the macrocosm and the microcosm. Because Mahatma M, he tells us that we have to look at the evolution in totality. We have to use the synthetic process, meaning synthesizing or making one, what is there on the higher planes and what manifests on the lower planes. So I have prepared a small slide presentation, which I want to share with you. I don't think this is going to be a very long session though. Okay, I hope the slides are visible.
Yes.
Okay. So this has reference to the chronological letter number 44. Now, I'll briefly go over the point which mentioned about macrocosm and microcosm in this letter. So as we know that the Mahatmas were giving out the occult teaching to Sinnett and to Hume. And many times they had their doubts and questions, which they would write to the Mahatmas. And then the Mahatmas would give their reply to them. So to one of the questions which Sinnett asked, in fact, Sinnett asked the question that I conceive that at the close of a pralay, the impulse given by the Dhyan Chauhans does not develop from chaos, a succession of worlds simultaneously, but seriatim. Seriatim is point by point. The comprehension of the manner in which each in succession ensues from its predecessor as the impact of the original impulse might perhaps be better postponed till after I am enabled to realize the working of the whole machine. So Sinnett was not clear about the working of the entire cosmos, and he says that it is better postponed till he understands the entire cycle of the worlds after all its parts have come into existence. So to this particular point of Sinnett, Mahatma M has written that nothing in nature springs into existence suddenly, all being subjected to the same law of gradual evolution. So there is no theory like the entire cosmos has just arisen out of nothing. It doesn't come like that. It gradually evolves, gradual evolution. Realize but once the process of the Maha cycle, one of the sphere, and you have realized them all. So this gradual process of evolution, it holds good at every level in the cosmos. Whether it is the universal process, whether it is the process at the level of the solar system, or whether it is the process on a planet, like the evolution of the races, or even for the birth of man. So he says, realize about the process, once the process of the Maha cycle, one of one sphere, and you have realized them all. So if you know any one process, and what it is said, that know yourself, know the process within you. Knowing yourself, you will know all. So that by which everything is known, that is to know the self, because it is the self in all and all in self. One man is born like another man. One race evolves, develops, and declines like another, and all other races. Nature follows the same groove from the creation of a universe down to that of a mosquito. Groove is nothing but a, a depression or a line along which the water is running or anything runs. Grooves are made by wheels of a vehicle. Like if a vehicle is moving on the same track for a long time, that groove is made. So the thought process which is being followed, or the process of nature which is being followed in creation of all these various worlds and solar systems and even beings, it is the same, right? From a mosquito down up to the highest planet or the all the worlds. Then further, Mahatma M had mentioned that in studying the esoteric cosmogony, keep a spiritual eye upon the physiological process of the human birth, because this physiological process of the human birth is what we witness, what we can see, what we can study. And if we understand this, then we can understand the process or the birth of every planet, of every world, of every galaxy, of even the universe. So, understanding the cosmogony of the universe, that is esoteric cosmogony. To understand that, we have to keep a spiritual eye upon the physiological process of human birth. So don't consider it in the material or in the exoteric form, the way the birth is taking place. You need to understand the correspondence it has to the universal principles. Then he says, proceed from cause to effect, establishing along analogies between the man and that of a world. So this is the correspondence. Understand the analogies or the correspondences between man and that world. Further to the same question of Synod, Mahatma M has continued, and he mentioned that in our doctrine, we'll find necessary the synthetic method. You have to embrace the whole. That is to say, blend the macrocosm and microcosm together. So you have to take a holistic view. You cannot separate them, otherwise you won't understand. If you do that, it will just be a physical process, how human birth takes place. But to be able to understand how a universe is born, so you need to blend them together, synthesize the process. Before you are enabled to study the parts separately or analyze them with profit to your understanding. So only after you have understood the whole, you have synthesized the whole process, then you can take up separate parts and study them individually. Like we have studied the 7 principles of man, and we know they correspond to the 7 principles of the universe, right? So how all this happens, what is the correspondence? That is of prime importance. And lastly, he mentioned that cosmology is the physiology of the universe spiritualized. For there is but one law. It is the same law at the higher level. It is the same law at the lower level. As above, so below. So as the higher planes are spiritual, so cosmology is nothing, but it is the physiology or the manifestation of the universe on the spiritual planes. So it is spiritualized. So when we talk about these terms, microcosm, macrocosm, what do we understand by that? Macrocosm, generally in the Theosophic literature, it represents the great universe, the entire cosmos. See here, it is the cosmos, it is represented with a K. In Hindu scriptures, this is Brahma, manifestation of Brahma. And the microcosm, it refers to the human being, which is called as the Jeev. So it is not necessary that macrocosm should be the entire universe. It can mean a solar system and the planets within it. So the planet or the earth is the microcosm with reference to the entire solar system. Similarly, like here we have mentioned the great universe, it is the macrocosm, and with reference to that, man, he is the microcosm. Now consider, for example, an ant. Perhaps to an ant, the ant can be represented as the microcosm, and to it, the man would be a macrocosm. So it is just a representation of the higher, which replicates itself at a lower level. The esoteric science proves man to be identical in spiritual and physical essence with both the absolute principle and with God in nature. Now, God in nature here does not mean anthropomorphic personal deity. What it means is the manifested universe, because the universe is pervaded by that absolute principle, the manifested principle. So if we look at it from this esoteric point of view, we will find this correspondence, and we will find that man is identical in his spiritual and physical essence with both of these principles. So as I was mentioning earlier, in Secret Doctrine Volume 5, so there is a edition of Secret Volume in which 6 volumes were printed, and I'm referring to the Adyar edition of 1971. So in that, at the end of Volume 5, there are 3 papers which are published in that volume. They were written by HPB and they were circulated privately. So we know that HPB, when she left India and then later on towards the end, her last days, she was in London, and there she was there at the Blavatsky Lodge, and there she gathered around her a group of very sincere aspirants. They were her students, and she gave them many teachings. So those teachings have they have a lot of value, and she wrote the Secret Doctrine, but many of her teachings they were written separately in papers. So this is what is published in that volume 5. And here she has given this correspondence very clearly about the macrocosm and the microcosm. So that is what we are going to study. And this is exactly what is written by Mahatma M. In this slide. In studying esoteric cosmogony, keep a spiritual eye upon the physiological process of human birth. So though we may not be able to understand it by our own self, but we have the advantage which HPB has written that paper for us, which we can refer. So she circulated these papers privately, but she had given her consent that they can be published later. So it was Annie Besant who got them published. And these papers, Annie Besant says that these papers are intended for the study by students, because ordinary readers, they might just read it for knowledge sake. They might not be that intent on understanding these esoteric concepts. But the true aspirant who really wants to understand this, so these papers were intended for those. HPB used to give these instructions to that close group of students when she was in London. So she said, she writes in that paper that people, her members, the aspirants, they would write to her. They would tell her that they have this desire to unite themselves with their higher ego. What is the higher ego? The higher ego is Atma, Buddhi, Manas. Right? And we say that, Theosophy says that there is just the one universal self. It is this universal principle which differentiates on different levels. So that becomes everything else in the universe. So when you say that you want to become one, or your higher self, you want to become one with that. So do the aspirants even know that there is an indissoluble link connecting their higher egos with that one absolute principle, which is the universal self? This was the question she asked them. For us, we can think of it like that. The one universal self, it is Parabrahma, or it is manifested, so it is Brahma. And then Atma, Buddhi, Manas. So what is this link between Atma, Buddhi, Manas, or the individuality of man, to Brahma or to Parabrahma, the absolute? And as per HPB, for all purposes of occultism, it was very important that the aspirant should have this knowledge, must have the correct and precise knowledge of this. Whether the person was pursuing practical occultism or whether he was just reading it for theoretical information, even then, this clarity is an absolute must. And in these papers, she wanted to show the same. So she proposed to begin these papers by showing this connection to all the worlds. And the worlds that HPB mentions, they are the absolute world, that is the highest world, the archetypal, which have the prototypes of everything that is manifested, the spiritual or the divine world, the mansic world, which is the mental world, the psychic world, psychic mostly to do with instinct, the astral world, and the elemental. Elemental world also comes into the physical world. So before we try to understand anything about the higher worlds, it is necessary to understand about the seventh or the lowest, which is called the terrestrial world or the lower Prakritic world, to the planes which immediately follow it. Now, what did she mean by this? We'll see this in the next slide. Okay, so this is the diagram I have taken from the paper, which is published in Secret Doctrine Volume 5. And here, what do we see? I hope this is not obstructing your view. Okay, so these are from the top. If we start, what is shown in this diagram are the cosmic planes. Cosmic starting with K. So this is universal planes. And we do not know anything about the higher three planes. So the first three planes are not shown. Then the fourth cosmic plane, third cosmic plane, and second cosmic plane are shown, which correspond to astral, then the life, and the calm manas. But again, on these three, that is the fourth, second, and fourth, third, and second cosmic plane, there is no manifestation as we know it. The manifestation of the universe for us happens on the first cosmic plane, which is called the Prakritic plane. It was also called the terrestrial plane. Now, just like all the other planes, this Prakritic plane is also divided into 7 subplanes. So each of these 7 subplane, they are the first, second, third, fourth, up to 6th, the Prakritic or the terrestrial planes on which the solar systems are created. So our solar system also exists on the first cosmic plane. Each of the subplane of the cosmic, this Prakritic plane, becomes a plane of the solar system. So the solar system also has 7 planes. But if you notice over here that the 7th plane, it is, first of all, we must understand that the planes are not in layers. They are all interpenetrating. They are pervading, all pervading in the entire space, and they are interpenetrating. What differentiates them is the density of the matter. So the matter of the higher planes is very subtle. The matter of the lower planes, as you go lower, it becomes more coarse and more dense. Okay. Now this 7th plane, it is not shown, but it is shown as the Auric envelope. So all this surrounding space which you see, this space to the left and the space to the right, all of this space, that is basically the 7th plane or the 7th subplane of the Prakritic plane, cosmic Prakritic plane. This basically forms the region where the solar system is going to develop. So that region is called this Auric envelope. It is bounded by the Auric envelope or the 7th subplane. It is the cosmic body. Okay. Now, so these correspond to the 7 solar planes. And on this, the lowest plane or the first Prakritic plane, that is our physical plane. Man has his being on the physical plane. And this is the constitution of man. So on the physical plane, he can sense the objective world by his 5 senses. So by his 5 senses, he is able to sense the objective world. Then at the astral level, whatever is perceived, it is reversed. It is a mirror image. So that is the astral world for man. At the next level, the calm pranic level, this is the psychic or the instinctual level. Instinct for man, okay, let me explain it with an example in animal. Animals have these instinct. So for example, if you take a kitten, the kitten will not go near water. Instinctively, it knows if it falls into the water, it will die if it cannot swim. Or if you take a duck, as soon as the eggs hatch, those ducklings will come out and they will take to the water and start swimming. It is instinctive. They know how to swim and they go into the water. So not only animals have instincts, even human beings have instinct. We instinctively know something to be true. Now, one important thing is we must not confuse instinct with intuition. Instinct comes from the kama pranic level. It is basically a lower quality, or a lower, what we say, it comes from the animal level, like instincts of animal. Whereas intuition always comes from the buddhic level, which is the spiritual level. So intuition is direct knowledge. You know something to be true directly. It doesn't require any logical proof or any analysis or deduction. Whereas instinct is something which comes due to the evolution which has happened through all these kingdoms, mineral, plants, animals. So all those experiences which have been gathered and stored in the causal body of man, they come as an instinct. So it comes from the lower level. This is very important. I'm telling you, in practical life, it happens. People feel that I am doing sadhana from so long, I am progressing on this path, so I am getting intuitions. I can feel something which is my intuitive knowledge. Whereas it may so happen that it is only instinctual knowledge. That is why one has to be careful about this the psychic level. Next we know is the Kam Mansik level, which is the passional level. This corresponds to the Rajas Tattva. So all activity, all motion, everything, ambition, desire, I want this, I want to do that, the motivation to do something, it comes from this passional level, Kam Manas. And then we have the mental level, Manas, which is the human soul, the thinking, logical, reasoning ability, the higher abstract thinking ability. And above that, we have the Buddhic level, which is the spiritual level. So this being of man, this constitution of man, it manifests on the first Prakritic plane, which is the lowest subplane of the first cosmic Prakritic plane. Now, this diagram is very important because it gives you a picture of what is the macrocosm and what is the microcosm. If I say macrocosm is the universe, then these cosmic planes, we have begun from the fourth, third, second, and first. So these cosmic planes, they are the macrocosm, and man who is manifested here, he is the microcosm. So all this constitution of man will in some way have a correspondence to the planes of the macrocosm. 1 to 4 are shown, the higher 3, we have no conception. Similarly, if we consider the solar system to be the macrocosm, so this auric envelope which you see, this is the envelope of the solar system, the manifestation of the solar logos on the lowest plane of cosmos, Prakritic plane of cosmos. So the solar system can be considered to be the macrocosm. And with respect to it, again, man is the microcosm. So it will have direct correspondence to all of these solar planes. Now let us see. Now here at the bottom, HPB had just written that don't consider that the planes are of different sizes, because on one paper, she doesn't have enough space to show all the planes in the same sizes. And so I told you in the beginning that anyway, the planes are not stratified, they are interpenetrating. Okay. Now, having explained that diagram, HPB says that she talks about this mystic sentence, Om Mani Padme Hum. We all have heard it multiple times. We chant this also. But do we actually know the meaning of that? This is a very mystic sentence, which is a reference to this link between microcosm and macrocosm. And when we say that Om Mani Padme Hum, this is a mantra, and mantras derive their power by the sound, by the way the words are pronounced, in what tone, what frequency, what pitch. So this mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, it has 7 syllables. Normally people say 6 because they count Om as 1, but Om is actually 2 syllables, A and So Om Mani Padme Hum, 7-syllabled mantra. And it can be spoken or it can be chanted. It can be rendered in 7 ways. Each will have a different application depending on what is the motivation or what is the thought and action behind it. So this one mantra, it can be rendered in 7 ways and it can have 7 applications. And it actually means I am that I am. This is basically in a nutshell, it's like a shlok. Just in one statement, it is giving you the link between man and the universe. I am in thee and thou art in me. What it means is the self in all and all in self, where we can say self is the one absolute principle. But this is a very uh, symbolic, or I would say a very concise statement in which we don't understand, okay, how is it that all is in self and self is in all? Or how am I connected with the one absolute principle? So for that, she goes on further to give the explanation in her paper. To show the student the perfect correspondence between birth of a cosmos or of a world or of a planetary being or of a child of sin and earth. Now, sin means god of the moon. This is in the Sumerian culture. The Sumerian culture which flourished in the region of Mesopotamia. So in that language, sin meant the god of moon. And we know that how is man born? Man is of earth, but he has the lunar pitris who gave him the astral body. That is why he is considered child of sin and earth. Remember, sin means god of moon. It doesn't mean any evil or some wrong thing. So if we want to understand the birth of any of this, whether a cosmos, a world, or a planetary being, means a high Dhyan Chauhan, or whether man, then a more definite and a clear description has to be given. Because just by that, the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum, we do not understand the correspondence. So I see some participants are raising their hand. Once we finish this slides, then we will have time for discussion. As I was saying, I don't think this presentation will take a long time. We'll go through it quickly and then we can have a discussion. So in her paper, HPP has mentioned that Vishnu Puran, it gives the exoteric allegory of birth of Brahma in the egg of the world, which is Hiranyagarbha. And this Hiranyagarbha, it is surrounded by 7 zones or planes. Now, these 7 zones or planes by which Hiranyagarbha is surrounded, in the world of form or in the world of matter, these are called the 7 planes or the 14 lok. So this is again explained in Secret Doctrine. What is meant by 14 lok? Why is it 14 in the Hindu scriptures, whereas Theosophy speaks of 7? So first thing we need to understand is that these 14 lok, they are not separate spaces. They are not geographical places in the space or in the universe, but they correspond to the 7 planes, and every plane has its material side and its spiritual side. So the material side is referred as tal and the spiritual side is referred as lok. The lok, as you all know, you must be familiar. We also chant in the Gayatri mantra. I'll start from the lowest lok, that is Bhulok, Bhuvarlok, Swarlok, Maharlok, Janahalok, Tapaha, and Satyalok. The Gayatri mantra goes on. Om Bhur Bhuvah Swaha Tatsavitur Varenamya. Tatsavitur Varenamya. Savitur, that is the light of the solar logos. In all these 3 lower worlds, Bhulok, which is the physical world, Bhuvarlok, the astral world, and Swarlok, which is called Swarg or that Devachanik lok. So in all these 3 lok, only the light of the solar logos, it is worthy of being desired. That's a Vitur Varenam. Okay, so that was the spiritual side of the planes, the lok. And corresponding to it, on the material side of the same plane, you will have the tal. So on Bhulok, the material side, most material side is Patal. From the highest, let us see, it is Atal, which will correspond to Satyalok. So Satyalok is the highest spiritual lok. There will hardly be any materiality. So that materiality, it is called Atal. That means Atal means no place. The prefix a corresponds to some negating something. Then second, Vital. Then Sutal. Sutal is a good place, good materiality. Talatal, Mahatal, Rasatal, and Patal. So if you go into the Vishnu Puran and you understand and analyze how they have written this allegory, it will give you exactly what is meant by these 7 planes, materiality and spirituality. But that is only the exoteric explanation. The secret analysis, the real esoteric meaning is not given. But there is a comparison between the matrix of the universe, the solar matrix, and the human matrix. Human matrix is the womb of the mother. So the female womb, a comparison of all these. So these become the macrocosm and the microcosm. And about the matrix of the universe, it is written, so this matrix of the universe, it is the womb of the universe. And in the Vishnu Puran, it is written that it is vast. Now, why is this vast? Because it has to contain the universe. The Meru Parvat, it is the mountain which is considered center of the universe. So the Meru and the future mighty oceans, they lay asleep in the waters that filled its cavity. The continents, seas, mountains, stars, planets, gods, demons, mankind, everything has to emerge from this. So if I just take you back to that slide, if we consider this, the macrocosm as the solar system, so the auric egg of the solar system. So in this, everything has to evolve, all the planets and everything that is comprises the solar system. So that is called the matrix of the universe. This is at the solar system level. But if we consider at the universal level, then it will be the womb of the universe comprising of all the cosmic planes. It will be an even larger area. So that is the correspondence, which is referring to the matrix of the universe. Now, in the same way, man is born in his mother's womb. As Brahma is surrounded by 7 layers within and 7 layers without the mundane egg. Mundane egg is Hiranyagarbha. So is the embryo. Just as esotericism in its cosmogony enumerates 7 inner and 7 outer layers, so also physiology notes as 7 the contents of the mother's womb. So this is the first correspondence. If you see how the universe has these 7 planes, 7 inner layers and 7 outer layers of the Hiranyagarbha, exactly in the same way, the mother's womb also has physiologically, means actually it can be people who have the background of medical science, they can actually know, they must have studied that there are 7 layers in that physiology too. So let us see what exactly are the 7 components in the physiology of the mother's womb. First of all, it is the embryo, which will become the man. Then second component is the amniotic fluid, which surrounds this embryo. There is the membrane, which is called amnion. It is derived from the fetus, and it will enclose this amniotic fluid. Fourth component is the umbilical vesicle, from which the umbilical cord of the embryo grows. So this will originally nourish the embryo. After that, fifth component is the allantois. It is a closed bag-like protrusion from the embryo, which will develop between the third component and the 7th component, meaning between the amnion and the chorion. And this will become, later on, it will develop into the placenta, which nourishes the embryo. Initially, this one is the umbilical vessel is nourishing, but later on when the placenta develops, that becomes the source or the channel for nourishment to the embryo. The 6th component, it is the space between the 3rd and the 7th. That means it is the space between that membrane, the amnion, and the outer layer, which is the chorion. And this space, it is filled with a fluid which is proteinaceous, albuminous. So it is filled with that. It is filled not only with that, but also there is another layer, which is the allantois. We'll see that further. So roughly, these are the 7 components. This is the physiology of the mother's womb. And each of these 7 components, they correspond to an antitype. Antitype is a prototype. which is there on each of the 7 planes of existence. So there is a direct correspondence of all these 7 components, which we have just seen, to the 7 planes of existence. And they correspond to the 7 states of matter and all the forces in nature. You know that the forces also are 10 and 7 and so on. So this is a very occult significance, because this is not theoretical. This is actually, you can actually see the physiology of man, and it works like that. So then HPV gives us a bird's eye view in the correspondence of the birth of cosmos and the birth of a human being, the cosmic process and the human process, and the correspondence. So there are 7 correspondences. We'll go over this, and that will be the last part of this presentation. Then we can have a discussion. So in the cosmic process, now as Mahatma M said in his letter, nothing happens suddenly out of nothing. Gradually, this process of evolution takes place, which is periodic. So the universes, they come into existence and they disappear in the one absolute principle. That is, from the bosom of Par-Brahma, a universe comes into existence and again dissolves into that. And in this way, there are innumerable universes which keep coming. They are called the sparks of eternity, if I'm correct. In the secret doctrine, Proem, they are called sparks of eternity. So when the universe has to come into existence, that is called a mathematical point. So this is an abstract concept, mathematical point. Okay, and this is what is called the monad or the cosmic seed. This abstraction, the mathematical point, this is the monad. It contains the whole universe, just like the seed of a mighty tree. The seed is so small, but it can grow into a mighty tree. So acorn, that is the seed, and oak is a huge tree. So seed of this acorn, it contains the entire tree. Similarly, that monad or the cosmic seed, it contains the entire universe. It will emanate into the universe. So it is the first bubble of differentiation on this boundless surface of the homogeneous substance or space. Now, what is this homogeneous substance? It is Mool Prakriti. And Mool Prakriti, as the secret doctrine says, it is not different from Par-Brahma. Par-Brahma and Mool Prakriti are same sides of the two coin. It is just that a wheel is thrown over Par-Brahma, because Par-Brahma is an abstraction. We cannot have any conception of that in our imagination. It is anirvachaniya. So this from Mool Prakriti, that is the side of Par-Brahma, which is going to manifest. So the first differentiation happens as a mathematical point called the monad. It is the beginning of Brahma's egg. What we said is Hiranyagarbha. So it is the beginning because it is a point. And at the solar system level, it corresponds to the sun. Now, at the level of human being, in the human process, this is the terrestrial embryo which takes his form in the mother's womb, and it will grow into the future man with all its potentialities. So we know that human beings has his 7 principles. So in this series of human principles, this is the Atma. It is the super spiritual principle. Just like we said, in the solar system, it is the sun or the solar logos. Then in the second component, which we mentioned in human, was the amniotic fluid. So at the cosmic level, it is the living vital force of our solar system. So here we are considering the solar system as the macrocosm. And this vital force or the living vital force, which is exuded by the solar logos, that corresponds to this amniotic fluid. At the cosmic level, it is called Akash. And Akash is said to proceed from 10 divinities. They are the forces in space. Now, we all know about the 7 rays, the 7 solar rays. So basically, there are 10 or the 10 types of forces. 3 are contained within the sun. They remain within the sun. The sun is also a being. He's the solar logos. Just like human beings, we have our 7 principles. Similarly, solar logos also, though he is logos, he still has the 7 principles. So in the 7th principle of the sun, the higher 3 forces, they remain. And the rest are thrown out into the solar system. So those 7 rays are shot out. Now, corresponding to human process, we said it is the amniotic fluid of the embryo, and it is called the pran on the plane of matter. So it corresponds to pran, right? The vital force. The source of pran is the universal one life. And in human being, it is said to proceed from the heart of man. This heart chakra corresponds to buddhi. And these 7 solar rays which are there, they preside over it, they control it. So this is the second correspondence, or correspondence of the second component. The third component is ether of space, which is corresponding to the amnion. This ether of space, it is the plastic aspect covering every body, like the sun. Plastic meaning it is very tenuous. It can easily mold itself. It is not hard, not concrete. And on the higher plane, it is the whole universe, is comprising the whole universe as the third differentiation of Mool Prakriti. So Mool Prakriti is manifesting the birth of the universe, the birth of macrocosm is happening. And this third differentiation, which is the ether, that is a very plastic crust like substance. And it corresponds mystically to Mahat. Mahat is Mahabuddhi, the universal soul, the intellect, that is Mahat. So it corresponds to that. Now you see how Mool Prakriti, which is an aspect of Parabrahma, how it is differentiating. Now we have come to the third differentiation. And now what happens correspondingly in the human being? This amnion, it is the membrane which contains the amniotic fluid. So it is that sac. After the birth of man, it becomes the third layer of his magneto-vital aura. Every human being is surrounded, has his own aura, has a magnetic force. So the third layer of this aura, this becomes the amnion, that membrane. It corresponds to Manas, or the human soul. Just like in cosmic process, it corresponds to Mahat, the universal soul. Here it corresponds to Manas, or the human soul in man. The fourth component, it is the sidereal contents of ether. Sidereal contents meaning the actual bodies, the celestial bodies which are there in that space. So they are represented in occult by the elementals, and in the physical astronomy, they are represented by meteors, comets, and other cosmic bodies. Now, see, these correspondence are exactly given like that in tabular form by HPB in her paper. So I have just put them down here, and I'm trying to explain depending on what I've understood. Perhaps you may have questions, or you might come up with some better explanation, which we'll discuss. So in the human process, we said the umbilical vessel, which initially provides nutrition to the fetus. So this corresponds to the fourth component. But as per occult science, this the fetus, the cosmic influences are transmitted to the fetus by this umbilical vessel. And these cosmic influences, they are external to the mother. But when the baby is in her womb, the cosmic influences are transmitted to the baby, to the fetus, through this umbilical vesicle. Now, when the man grows up, this umbilical vesicle, it becomes, or these cosmic influences, they become feeders of calm, the calm principle in man. They are fed by these cosmic influences and are presided by them. And in the physical man, they become his emotions and passions. So they are compared to the moral meteors and comets of human nature. Just like we had in the cosmos, the meteors and comets, which roam our solar system also, other cosmic bodies. So these passions and emotions become meteor and comet in human nature. They keep coming, they keep going. The fifth component in human, it was the allantois. In the cosmic process, it is the life current in the ether. So life current in our solar system, it has the origin in the sun. It is basically pervading the entire solar system. So there are streams, or here she writes the word canals. In human beings, that word nadi is also used. So it is the canals through which the vital principle of that ether, It is compared to the blood of cosmic body. Like blood flows through our whole body, which gives us that nourishment. So it passes and nourishes everything in the solar system. And what is there in the solar system? All the planets are there. On the earth, we have mineral, plant, animal, man. All of these are nourished by this life current, which are derived from the sun. Now, corresponding in human process, the allantois is a closed bag-like protrusion from the embryo, which was between the third and seventh component. That means between the amnion and the chorion. And it conducts the nourishment from mother to embryo. So this allantois, if I remember correctly, it becomes the placenta. Let me just check. Yes. So the fifth one, allantois, it later specializes into the placenta. So it is giving the nourishment. And in the macrocosmic also we saw that it is nourishing all the planets in the solar system. So in the human beings, it corresponds to the life principle, which is pran or jeev. The sixth component, this process, we are talking about the process of birth of cosmos and the process of birth of the human being. So the sixth component during the process of birth of cosmos is the double radiation, the psychic and physical. So two radiations, which radiates from the cosmic seed. Cosmic seed was the monad or the mathematical point from which emanated the entire universe. So it will expand around the whole cosmos or the solar system or every planet. It will pervade the entire cosmos. In occultism, it is called the upper divine and lower material, astral light. Sorry. So that is the double radiation, psychic and physical. We know that the earth is surrounded by astral light. So it is not only earth, it is saying that the entire cosmos, the solar system. So these are differentiations of that astral light, how it manifests on the higher planes and how it manifests on the lowermost plane that is just next to the earth. This corresponds in human process to the interspace between the third and seventh component, between the amnion and the chorion. So between these, it contains this interspace, it contains two layers, that is the allantois and an albuminous fluid. Both of them are between these two components in the womb of the mother. So I think that this human process may not be very much known or very clear to everybody, because everyone doesn't come from a medical background. But people who have that knowledge, it will be very clear to them. Then the seventh and the last component, it is the shell of the mundane egg. I showed you there on the lowest cosmic prakritic plane, the auric envelope of the solar system. So that is the shell of the mundane egg for the solar system. Similarly, it will be the shell for the entire universe, the Hiranyagarbha. So it is the outer crust of every sidereal body or the sphere of our solar system or of our earth or of every man and animal. So see how the correspondences are, whether it is the largest system, the solar system, or whether it is the planet Earth, or whether it is man or animal. The outermost crust is the shell. That is the shell of the mundane egg. In sidereal space, meaning in the celestial space, it is ether proper. And on the terrestrial plane, it is air, which again has 7 layers. So this primordial potential world stuff, it becomes the manvantrik globes. The globes assume hardness, they crystallize, that shell is formed around them. This corresponds in the human process to the chorion. It is the membrane which forms the physical man. So it is basically the skin of man, and the skin is 7-layered. The outer layer, ectoderm, it forms the epidermis of the skin. If you take a cross section of the skin, you can see all these layers actually under the microscope. I've done it because I studied bio also, and I took physics also. So I took this, I've seen this, the 7 layers of the skin. You can clearly see the ectoderm and the epiderm. but you cannot see all the 7 layers clearly under the microscope. Perhaps under a stronger microscope, you can. So this primitive becomes the permanent chorion or the permanent skin of the human being. So this is the correspondence which HPB has given between the birth of cosmos and the birth of human beings. And this is what Mahatma M was referring to Sinet, that you have to consider this in totality, in a whole, to understand the functions or from where these things are happening. He says further that the same holds true for evolution of races. There are 7 races. Which principle or which quality evolves with each race, which physical characteristic evolve with each race. It again corresponds to the human process and also the cosmic process. But we are not going into that. As my last slide, what I have done is I have taken that how the correspondence is shown in Vedanta, that is in our Hindu scriptures. HPB had mentioned about the Vishnu Puran. And here I'm giving the correspondence between macrocosm and microcosm, which is given in Vedanta. So macrocosm, it is basically the universality or Brahma, as we call what is manifested. And microcosm, it is the individuality or the Jeev. Now, what is the difference between them? Brahma is basically unconditioned universal consciousness and Jeev is conditioned consciousness. Jeev is conditioned by space, time, and objectivity. So the powers, the knowledge, everything about the Jeev becomes limited. The Jeev can identify only with his own body, right? Whereas Brahma is basically the entire Brahmand, unconditioned universal consciousness. So how does this macrocosm compare to microcosm or Brahma compared to Jeev? At the universal level or macrocosmic level, Brahma manifests as Ishwar. What is Ishwar? Ishwar is the causal body of the universe. Okay. Now see, this corresponds in Jeev to the state of Pragya, the deep sleep. We'll come to that. So causal body of the universe. Ishwar has no form, but Ishwar is, he is omniscient, all-knowing. He is omnipresent, that means all-pervading. And he is omnipotent, meaning he is all-powerful. So that manifested one principle, which is the universal soul, that is Ishwar. He is this, the consciousness that we have, I am, that all-inclusive I-ness, that is Ishwar. That self-awareness comes from Ishwar. The moment we say I am, it becomes the first cause. It becomes the first cause of the universe, and then the whole cycle of evolution has to pass. So Ishwar, Brahma manifests as Ishwar, which is the causal body of the universe. Then at next level, Brahma manifests as Hiranyagarbha. We have just spoken about Hiranyagarbha in the previous slides. So Hiranyagarbha is basically from which, or rather which emanates into the universe. So it is the universal thought. It is the universal mind. It is called the source of knowledge, of wisdom. So that is why it is compared to the sun, or what we can call as it is compared to the Bhaskar, Jnana Bhaskar. This contains, universe is nothing but it is the thought of God. That is what is said. So it is the thought of God or the dream of God. And because it is the source of all knowledge, so it is represented by the sun. The rising sun is golden in color. So it is called Hiranya. And it is in the shape of an egg. That is Hiranyagarbha. It is the prototype or the basis for the emanation of the universe. That is why it is called the nominal world. Based on this, the physical world gets manifested, which is the phenomenal world. That is the manifestation of Brahma as Virat. So the entire manifested world, movable, immovable, all planets, all beings, everything, that is the body of Brahma, manifested body, the phenomenal world. So these are the 3 manifestations of Brahma, which are given in Vedanta. That is the causal body, the nominal body, and the phenomenal body, which correspond in vocabulary as Ishwar, Hiranyagarbha, and Virat. Now, corresponding to this is the Jeev. So from Brahma, when it becomes limited, it becomes Jeev. And the states of Jeev are the waking state, which is the Vishva. So he can see the world with his eyes. The waking state stems from the eyes. Then the Tejas state. The Tejas state is the dreaming state. It stems from the mind. So eyes are not working. That means the sense organs not working. They are asleep. But the mind is dreaming. Whatever is dreamt, you see in the dream. The Tejas, Manas Tejas. If you read the Mahatma letters, Mahatma KH has stressed a lot. Man needs to understand Manas Tejas. Then only he can hope to understand the higher things. So it can be a very long topic, but I'm telling you in short. So after dreaming, then man goes into the deep sleep state, the third state, which is the state of pragya. So in this state, the eyes are not working, the manas is also not working. So what is working? It is the heart. From this state, the heart works. That is pragya. That is direct knowledge. That is the buddhic knowledge. But when he wakes up, that knowledge is not transmitted to the manas. Therefore, he cannot recall when he wakes up. But if he is able to make that connection and transmit that knowledge to the manas, then he will achieve that state of Jivan Mukti. So Vishwa, Tejas and Pragya, these are the states for the Jeev. And this is the correspondence given in Vedanta between Brahma and Jeev, or between the macrocosm and the microcosm. So with this, we end the study for today. That's it. Thank you very much. And now we are open for discussion. If any of you would like to ask something or add something, you're most welcome. No questions? Any additions to what we said? I think in the next session, perhaps Pradeep ji, Mahapatra ji will continue with letter number 44. And I remember in that session, Sheetal ji had this desire to go through the correspondence between macrocosm and microcosm. So though it was not planned, but still, just because Pradeep ji was not available today, so we went ahead with this comparative study.
Yeah, madam. I came little late, 15 minutes late. I'm sorry for that because I earnestly wanted it to attend your thing, but this is very hard to understand. So we must go through it again so as to ask you the doubts.
Correct.
That's why I think all are chup.
Probably you are right. And one, I don't know, concern which I have is that the current editions of Secret Doctrine will not have these papers published. So they may not be available to many of the people. But those who are having that old edition, or perhaps they can get it from the library or from Adyar. I think Shindeji would be knowing about it.
Yes, Vibhaji.
Namaste, sir.
Namaste, namaste. I am, yeah.
Yes.
Thank you for your detailing of the microcosmos and macrocosmos relationship. And can I audible, no?
Yes, sir.
So really it is very interesting to go deeper and deeper and deeper. And I am sure you will enjoy that one when you study
Yes,
that
I
and
do.
when you express that. That is a different kind of experience. That is what I studied when I studied the Secret Doctrine, evolution, etc., etc. You go deeper and deeper and deeper, deeper, and you have explained it. Correspondence of all this with the cosmic and terrestrial. Wonderful. In one sentence, all of us, we must understand is, I am both microcosmos as well as macrocosmos. I am both, in the sense we can understand man is the expression of macrocosmos or God. Man is the expression of God, and this God is reality of man. God is reality of man. So this is how both are related. They are not different. They are self in one in all. That is what we express.
Yes.
Really, it is to be understood, and especially you have satisfied the intellectuals to go deeper and deeper in the study of Theosophy, how it explains and brings correlation with all this. Nothing is apart. Everything is included. Everything is connected. Everything is how it is related to different planes. It is
Correct.
only illusion that we say we are separate, but all is in self and self is in all. That is what finally true. So in this sense, man is the expression of God, and God is reality of man. This is what we have to meditate and understand with the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum. Thank you very much. Very nicely you explained. All the best for you in all such kind of lectures. They are very helpful not only to all of us, but they are more helpful to you. That is what I am seeing now.
Very true.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I myself go into a very deep study to understand. Only then I can speak about it.
Yeah.
So thank you all for joining. If there are no more questions, then we can bring the session to a close. Okay, we'll close the session with the closing prayer. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Sarvesham Swastirabhavatu Sarvesham Shantirabhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Lokaha Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaste and thank you all for coming.